Less than 24 hours, Georgians will be under a shelter-in-place order.
McDonald, though, said he did not know the man was handcuffed and was trying to use his foot to pin him to the ground so he could be handcuffed.
If your friends, neighbors, or local organizations are not complying, report them to us.
Howdy, y'all. Welcome to the Free Georgia podcast. My name is Jake Green. Thank y'all for tuning in today. Before we get started, go on over to lpgeorgia.com to learn more about what the Libertarian Party of Georgia is doing around the state to spread freedom and liberty. You can get involved in a whole bunch of different ways. You can go to our store. We are also having a Second Amendment Range Day coming up on November 23rd. Hosted by Edgar Mills of Osprey Shooting Solutions. You can reserve a spot for $50. Highly recommend. I've been out there a few times. Edgar is a phenomenal teacher, phenomenal trainer, and it's always good to, practice with your firearm, get good at it, know it inside and out, practice, So get tickets to that. Go on over to lpgeorgia.com, learn more about the party, learn more about what we're doing around the state of Georgia. All right. Today's guest, we're going to watch the body cam footage of her being arrested before she comes on. So we'll just to set it up a little bit. Her name is Brittany Patterson. She lives in North Georgia. Her 10-year-old son walked into town, which is less than a mile away, was proceeded to be picked up by the police, brought back to her house. Police leave, and 5 hours later, they show back up and arrest her. She had no idea this was going to happen, and so this is the body cam footage of that arrest.
320, would you clear? 10-4, I'll play C21.
Your what?
10-4.
I got mine. Which door? This one or this one? Yeah. This one? There's somebody sitting right there. Is that her? Is that her?
Yeah, that one's a piece of white too.
Hey, Brittany.
Yeah.
I need you to come out here. No, not 1 second. I need you to come out here.
Hey guys, can I call y'all right back in just a second? I've got somebody at the door here. Okay. All right, thank you. All right, bye. Yes, ma'am.
Is there somebody else here with the kids besides your grandpa?
No.
Okay.
Huh? No, there's nobody here but Pop.
Okay. Turn around for me.
Why?
Because you're under arrest.
For what?
For the incident we talked about earlier today.
What am I under arrest for?
For reckless endangerment.
And how was I
Turn around.
recklessly endangering my
We're not
child?
talking about it.
Soren, call mommy and tell them they're taking me to jail because you decided to walk down the street.
Let go of your hands.
That's not his fault.
Yeah, call mommy.
You're the mother. That's your responsibility to
Yeah,
keep
I
up with
need
your
you
child.
to not talk to me, please.
That's
Okay,
true.
Soren, give her a call. Okay.
Last
time I checked, it wasn't illegal for a kid to walk to the store. So.
It is when they're 10 years old.
It is?
Yes.
Okay, I'd like to see that on the books.
Okay. Well, you'll see it on your warrant.
Great.
I need somebody here to stay with the kids.
I don't have anybody.
Do you want to take this watch off? Or you want to take
Okay.
it with you?
Well, then I'm calling DFAX.
Soren, come here.
315 then. Show 1 female 95.
Come here. No, I want you to call Marmy. Come here. Maybe she.
Hey,
Hey, come here. Let me talk to her. Hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
The police are here and they're taking me to jail. So I need you to come stay with the kids.
319, 1042.
No, I'm not kidding. It's ridiculous.
10-4.
I'll be there just for 5 minutes.
Okay.
Bye.
All right, bye. They're taking me to jail.
I love you.
Love you too, baby. Bye.
You go, you keep coming in back.
I'll be back.
Come on.
Do you need to wait for my mom to get here?
We'll wait. Yeah, come on.
Okay, can I tell my other 2 kids goodbye so they don't freak out?
Yeah, that's
Please.
where they at.
Please go get Noah and Evander and tell them to come tell me goodbye. Okay, thank you.
Do you need to take anything with you?
Do I need anything?
Wallet or anything? Do you want to take it with you?
I probably should. It's in the car.
Okay. Which vehicle? This one or this
The
one?
black one.
Is it unlocked?
Yes.
Okay. You give me permission to get your wallet out of it?
No.
Okay.
Good call.
The chicken's wearing a jacket.
Yeah, no. There's one wearing another
Idiots.
jacket.
Don't try to be cute. Shut up.
That's coming.
Call Daddy and tell him they're taking me to jail.
Alright.
Marmy will be here in a minute.
Huh?
Marmy will be here in a minute.
Okay.
Okay? Alright, love you guys.
Alright, love you. Bye. When will you be back?
Who knows?
What?
You need to check it for anything?
I'll have to carry it. Can I get your phone? You got anything else on you?
No, but you can stick the phone in there.
That's fine.
I don't have any pockets.
Nothing that's going to get you in trouble once you cross guard lines.
I don't think so.
I'm just
Don't
gonna
do
look this
drugs.
up, make sure there's no weapons or anything like that. I just have to check.
I don't carry weapons.
Nothing in your purse, right?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
All right. So that's pretty much it. Goes on for a little bit longer, but they just put her in the back of the squad car, still handcuffed, and haul her off to jail. Wild. Yeah, this is not something new. If you've been listening to this podcast for a while or watching it, parental rights is a huge issue in Georgia. The number of times that the rights of parents have been absolutely trampled on, destroyed, families broken up because the Georgia government can't get their act together and can't stay out of private citizens' lives is astounding. And so, yeah, that's what happened to Brittany Patterson this past week. And we're going to bring her on now, and she's going to tell her story. So without further ado, Mrs. Brittany Patterson. All right. Joining me today is Miss Brittany Patterson and Mr. David DeLugas of Parents USA. Brittany, this story is all about you and your son and your family. Can you just give a brief description of the events that took place the day that you were arrested?
So in a nutshell, I have 2 younger kids that homeschool and 2 older ones that go to public school. And I was going to take one of my older kids in public school to a doctor's appointment. And whenever I leave the house like that, the ones that homeschool, they can stay or they can come if they want to get out of the house. It's kind of up to them. And I thought Soren was going to come, but then when I went back in and called his name, he didn't answer. And that was about the extent that I felt I needed to investigate, because I just seen him 2 minutes before when I walked out to the car. So I just figured he wanted to stay home, or he'd already, was playing outside or something like that. And so my daughter and I just left, and we went and picked up my son, and his appointment was just 20 minutes away. So I knew at most I'd be back in an hour and a half. But while we were at the appointment, I got a phone call from the sheriff saying that they had found him in Mineral Bluff, which is just, short of a mile from our house. Little 4-way stop town. And she, just wanted to let me know that he was there. And I was like, okay. So, she said she'd bring him home. She brought him home. I got home a little bit later and, talked to him, was like, hey buddy, you need to let me know if you're going to do that. I don't mind if you do that, but just send me a text, hey mom, I'm going to walk into town. And then we just kind of, went about our day. I had some work to do. My older son had wrestling practice, just kind of like our normal everyday thing. And at about 6:30, after we were all back home from activities, is when they came and knocked on my home office door and arrested me.
Jeez. So it was like much.
The whole thing was about 5 minutes. From the time they showed up to my door to the time they had me in the cruiser backing down the driveway was less than 5 minutes. So it all happened pretty quickly.
Wow, that is extremely fast. Can you give like a description of like what the town is and what your area is like as far as just living your life?
Hey,
So
Jake,
the little
let me step in because I'm happy to let Brittany answer the question, and she's going to describe it, and it's going to be quaint and interesting and not dangerous at all. But here's something I'd like viewers to know. Does it matter? Do children who are walking the sidewalks in New York City to go to the bodega to pick up a snack or a bottle of water, walking by homeless people, or in Los Angeles and Hollywood doing the same, or those who are in Arizona, does it really matter? Because if you're going to charge somebody with a crime, anybody with a crime, then that person needs to have done something criminal. And so what did Britt do? She left her child, almost 11, at home where grandpa lives in the in-law suite downstairs and where they have land, and he often goes out and plays in the woods behind their home. She left. That's all she did. Subsequently, he on his own walked into town, which in and of itself is not a crime. And so the fact that he went into the town isn't that she made him go into town. And the way I've illustrated it sometimes is, let's say it's a law that your child riding a bicycle has to wear a helmet. And you bought him a helmet and he has a bicycle. And when he goes out riding, you put the helmet on him and he rides off. But one day you're not there. He gets on the bike, rides off without his helmet on. Have you committed a crime because your child made the decision to not put a helmet on? What is it you did? You follow me? So the notion he walked into town, whether or not he was walking down the median in the town, you with me? He wasn't, by the way, but let's say he's just walking down the yellow line in between the two lanes of traffic. That probably is not a wise idea, although, you get the Shriners out there in the middle of the road all the time asking for money to some donationer. But my point is, even if he does something really dangerous, what is it Britt did that then means let's charge her with a crime? Now, having said that, tell them about your quaint little town.
Okay. So Mineral Bluff is really not even hardly a town. It's a 4-way stop. There's a Dollar General, a Baptist church, a little tiny post office and fire station, a little gas station, and a little place that sells firewood. I mean, that's pretty much it. So there is a head start. There's a little head start there. I forgot about that. But it's really not really even a town. There's not much there. So it's pretty quiet for the most part. So yeah, if you can imagine like the smallest town, then that's probably it.
Sounds a lot like my grandmother's town where I grew up going to hang out with her and see my grandparents. And they're, one stoplight, nothing else. You can walk wherever you want and no one cares. I was never arrested. I definitely did far.
And it's not even a stoplight. It's a stop sign.
Oh, yeah. What was the scene like when so from the time that they dropped him off to when they came back for you, how long was that time period?
About 5 hours.
Okay. And did it even cross your mind that they were going to be coming back?
No, I was not expecting that. I had no idea.
So they gave no indication that you were a person of interest in a crime that was committed.
No.
Okay.
If they did, I didn't get the message. I didn't understand the terminology or something, because I wouldn't have been sitting at my desk on the phone with clients if I would have known the police were going to show up and start knocking on the door. And I had to tell them, I have to go. I'm sorry.
Right.
So I had no idea.
What was that scene like? Like when you opened the door and saw the police, what was What was that like?
Well, so my office door is like a full glass door. So I was sitting right here where I am now. So when I looked over, when I was on the phone, I could see that they were police officers before I even opened the door. But even at that point, I didn't think that I was going to get arrested because I couldn't imagine what I could possibly be. Why, that didn't even cross my mind. So I just figured that maybe they were just stopping back by, just to check on him and make sure, everybody's okay. So I was on the phone and I went over and opened the door and I just kind of went like this, just because, again, I didn't think I was getting arrested and there was any sense of urgency. So I was just, asking them to give me a minute so I could professionally get off the phone with my clients. And that's when, they started demanding that I step outside right now. And so I did. And when you watch the body cam video, you can see that they immediately told me to put my hands behind my back. And if I wouldn't have asked any questions, they would have just hauled me down to the car. And I think that's all they would have said. So I had to ask why. Why do I need to put my hands behind my back? And they said, because you're under arrest. Okay. For what? And the first time I asked, I didn't even get an actual charge. She said, for the incident that we talked about earlier. And so then I had to ask again, what am I under arrest for? And that's when she said reckless endangerment, which is not what was on the warrant. David said that doesn't even exist as a statute. So
it doesn't. She made a mistake. The warrant says reckless conduct. And let me interject here for those watching and listening. In 1997, a 5-year-old boy died while in the care of his 12-year-old half-brother, while mom went out for the evening on a date. Keeping in mind, what mom did was entrust the 12-year-old to care for the 5-year-old. We don't know from the records what actually happened. The mom was accused of the same crime Britt Patterson is accused of, reckless conduct, a Georgia statute, a specific Georgia statute. And that case ended up in the Georgia Supreme Court. And the Georgia Supreme Court said, because the reckless conduct statute has language like creates an unreasonable danger to another person. Okay. And the Georgia Supreme Court said, well, in the context of the parent who has a caregiver, babysitter, sibling looking after a younger child, in spite of how tragic it is that this child died, this statute's vague. It doesn't give anybody in Georgia fair warning as a parent what you can and cannot do, and therefore it's unconstitutional. And second basis for it's vague, unconstitutional. Second basis was, and this should resonate with everybody, because of how vague it is, it gives law enforcement far too much discretion to decide and label anything as unreasonably dangerous and charge somebody with, quote, reckless conduct. And that was what this deputy decided to go seek an arrest warrant using that statute that had been declared unconstitutional, and came back and then told Brett, you're under arrest for reckless endangerment. Again, could have just been an innocent mistake.
Yeah, it reminds me of, I forget who the quote's from, but it's find me the man and I'll show you the crime. It's basically like, we have the crime out there, so just point at a person and I'll show you what crime they've committed. And trusting law enforcement to interpret a law is not what they're supposed to be doing. They're supposed to be enforcing the law that's already there. They're not meant to interpret anything. The law is supposed to be very definitive, and this is what you can and cannot do. Law enforcement isn't supposed to be allowed to take that kind of charge and just apply it willy-nilly to whoever they want, just because they didn't like the optics of what the kid may have done. That's crazy. Brittany, what's happened since that day for you? Like, what I was shown your article by my sister-in-law who lives in Texas. Somebody tweeted out something and she sent it to me and she's like, you gotta find this woman and talk to her. So what has been going on since the day?
A lot.
Came out? Yeah.
A lot. It's been kind of hard to keep up with, but I mean, I've not been contacted or heard anything else from any authority in the county. So really just what's been going on is I guess I've just been, with David, just kind of speaking out because I didn't feel like it was right what they did. I feel like the trauma that it's caused to my children, the experience of watching me be hauled off in handcuffs is going to have lasting effects. And really, what good did it do to take me to jail for an hour and a half? Did that make anything safer? What did that accomplish besides traumatize my family? So, so I just didn't like the whole way that it was done. There could have been a more professional approach that didn't involve my kids.
So hang on, when they took you off to jail, was anybody home to look after the kids?
No.
Oh,
no.
so
and
they
listen,
proceeded to do the exact same thing.
Yeah. Let me point out something really important, is that when they dropped Soren off back home, they left him at home the same way I did, with my dad downstairs and no other adult in the house. That's exactly how I left him. And he was like that for 20 minutes or so, 15, 20 minutes before I got back home from the doctor's appointment. So that's honestly one of the most baffling things to me is I'm getting arrested for the same thing that the officers did when they brought him home. So yeah, I had to ask to tell my children goodbye. They were just, when you see the footage, they just turn me around and say, let's go. And I had to ask if I could tell my children goodbye so that they wouldn't freak out. And I got to tell 3 of them goodbye. And then once I was in the cruiser, and this is not on body cam because he turned it off, but as we were backing down the driveway, I had asked if we could at least sit at the bottom of the driveway until my mom got there. Because I felt like that was pretty traumatic for my kids, and my mom's very nurturing and comforting. And so I felt like it would be good for her to be there. And he told me he didn't have time for that and just sped off and took me to jail. So.
Hey, Jake, one of the things that I'm aware of, having watched the body cam video, is the deputy asked her, is somebody here other than Grandpa? And Britt answered no. Yet there are 4 children there, the eldest of whom is 16. And according to the DFACS guidelines, a 16-year-old is well allowed under DFACS guidelines to care for younger siblings for up to 12 hours. And the immediate reaction to the deputy when Britt said, no one else is here other than Grandpa, well, we're going to just have to call DFACS and come get your kids. Really? It would make a lot more sense, of course, if law enforcement, first of all, they shouldn't even be arresting her, but if they're going to, maybe call her up and say, hey, come on down to the police station within the next day or 2. We have an arrest warrant. If you'd like to see a copy of it, we'll bring it by, but come on in when you can. And secondly is, you're not calling DFACS because 4 kids are home with a grandpa and the eldest one, 16, when DFACS says, oh yeah, that's fine. See that? Never mind. It's pretty obvious.
That's wild. They don't even know their own laws. That's nuts.
They're not required to know it, right? Because nothing happens under qualified immunity, at least generally. But I think we can get past that.
Yeah.
I think that's another podcast.
I think that is. We've talked about qualified immunity quite a bit. That's a huge topic for the Libertarian Party of Georgia.
Yeah. But yeah, to answer your question, Jake, they took me and left the kids there with just the one female officer waited in the driveway until my mom got there, is what I was told. But that was it. There was nobody else with them.
Wow. Okay. And so then they fingerprinted you, put you in jail. You posted bail. Is that how it worked for you?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what I've been told, you've been given some type of plea deal. Are we allowed to talk about that? Can you discuss that at all?
Well, let's use I don't mind her talking about it, but let's talk about the deal because it wasn't a plea deal. In fact, nothing formal came up. The assistant district attorney, as soon as I filed the paperwork that indicated and emailed her PDF copies that indicated I'm representing Britt, the assistant district attorney reached out and said, "Hey, let's talk." So we did. And in that conversation, the assistant district attorney suggested that it was unlikely they would pursue the criminal charges if Britt would sign a safety plan. So now let her take it from her perspective. But just to lay it out, there's no formal offer. It's not a plea deal. It would have been up to Britt whether she would accept a, quote, plea deal. Yet that's an acknowledgement that you did something wrong and that you committed a crime, but you're going to take the plea deal. And certainly the Libertarian Party of Georgia and those who follow libertarian principles and idea understand, as a constitutional attorney who used to be with the Institute for Justice, now at the Cato Institute, gentleman by the name of, darn it, I'm going to lose his, I'll think of it in a minute. His Twitter handle is Con Law Warrior. He calls it plea coercion.
There we go. That's exactly what it is.
That's what it feels like. Yeah. Yeah. So the next day, the defects came to my house unannounced, which was fine. I don't have anything to hide. You know, I wasn't worried about it. They interviewed all my kids. I showed them around the house, and it lasted about 2 hours. Talked to my dad, talked to my mom, talked to my sister-in-law who just happened to be there. And, you know, when she asked if she could go talk to my one son at school, and I said that was fine. But when she left, she said everything looks fine. I don't see any issues. You have a beautiful home, and I'd like to have this off of my desk, and you probably won't hear from me again. So I thought that was great. And that was on Friday. So then, of course, there was the weekend. And then Tuesday, I get a text message from her asking if she can come by and discuss a safety plan, which I didn't know what that was. I'd never even heard of it before. Mm-hmm. You know, DFAX has never been to my house before. So I've never been through this process. But anyway, so, you know, I asked her, I said, well, you know, last time I talked to you on Friday, you said that I probably wouldn't hear from you again. Has something changed? And anyway, she basically said that she had been asked to include the safety plan in her report or case, or I don't know what they call that. But so what I gather from the way she said it is that she wasn't initially going to put that in her report, but then she was asked to put that in her report. So, yeah.
By the district attorney's office.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know if I could say that or not. So thank you, David. But, and
so
that was a phone conversation.
True.
Yeah. So naturally I said, I'm not going to sign that because when I was talking to the case manager, you know, she said that the DA had said that if I sign the safety plan, then they would likely drop the charges by Christmas. So I wasn't getting anything definitive. I forget the terminology you used, David, but it was the same, like likely, maybe, it might happen. And I'm just not going to sign a safety plan, which I feel like is me admitting that my home and my parenting style is not safe. And if it wasn't, I wouldn't have gotten all my kids to teenagehood, you know. So I don't happy and healthy and thriving. So I just felt like that was ridiculous, especially when I'm not getting anything in return for sure.
Yeah.
Well, let's address the misnomer title of the document and the contract you would be signing. Safety plan.
What is the safety plan? That was my next question.
Yeah, the terms in the safety plan, and I've sent you a PDF of it, state that she would download a GPS tracking device to her son's phone while somebody with the government would be watching her to make sure she did it. And that she would keep track of him and also assign an adult, grandmother or some other adult, to be aware and supervising Soren if Britt, mom, was unavailable. So here are a couple thoughts. They call it a safety plan, but how does that actually make a child safer to know where that child is? Secondly, it assumes that the child's phone is with them at all times. Kids that are 11 years old, he turned 11 a few days later. Kids that are 11 might people walk out the door and forget their phones all the time who are adults. So kids go out and play, they don't necessarily take their phone with them. Or they take their phone, but they forgot to charge it. So the idea that somehow this makes a child who was never unsafe safer, and somehow that's something she's going to adhere to, is merely like the terms of bail or bond or probation. Now, if you violate the safety plan, guess what? That itself is something they can act on. You violated the safety plan to which you voluntarily agreed with some duress or pressure of the pending criminal charge. So it's just another way to get inside the family that DFACS and the district attorney's office and government doesn't need to be inside this family. How about go deal with families where the parents are on meth or the children have bruises, broken bones, cigarette burns. And those cases, horrible cases, exist. And DFACS claims they don't have enough resources to do all the work they should do. Well, then quit doing this work. I think we're going to have to sick Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy and the Department of Government Efficiency on DFACS and the district attorney's office, or maybe Governor Kemp will create a Department of Government Efficiency for this state and address it so that the legislature doesn't get requests every year to allocate more money for DFACS when they waste so much of their money on cases like this.
Yeah. I mean, not to mention being forced to download a government tracking app onto somebody's phone, onto a child.
Well, it wouldn't necessarily be government tracking it, but a government person watching her download a commercially available tracking. And you're right, tracking your own child. Some parents think it's a great idea. Other parents don't.
Wait, so, okay, let me get this straight. The tracking app isn't actually hooked up to any agency, any sheriff's department, nothing. It's literally just for Brittany.
It just could have been like Life 360 or something, I think.
And then you could have just turned off all of it and it wouldn't have mattered. Like,
or well, maybe no, because if she did, she'd be violating the safety plan. If they found that out, she'd be in trouble. So that's the kind of thing. Here, we want you to agree to do something, but if you agree to it, but then you don't do it, you're going to be in trouble. I've used the analogy, Jake, if you have a teen driver and you put a device on their car, that may give you as a parent some peace of mind to say, well, I know where they are. They're at the high school. They're at the they've gone to Walmart, wherever they've gone. I know where they are. But knowing where they are doesn't make them safer. You see, you just know where that car is. You actually know where the car is. You don't know where they are. Unless we start implanting, and yes, that's been out there now. It is that at some point, government's going to want to put implants in all of our children and all of us. And we're not going down that conspiracy path. I'm just saying, safety plan with a GPS device solely for her to keep track that subjects her to, you violated the safety plan if for some reason that app, what if you're Jake. What if Soren, after it's downloaded to his phone, he decides to go in there and delete an app on his phone? That isn't real hard. All you do is press on it until it starts blinking. Then you hit the X and it's gone. So he deletes it. Mom doesn't know it's deleted. He's in town again or somewhere and you don't have the app. Now they come and get her because she violated the safety plan. It's just one big circle of control.
That's so dumb. I mean, that's so pointless. And most phones come with a tracking app anyway. It's so easy to track, just have a little setup with a native app. You don't need to download something. That's, first of all, it's ridiculous that they would even ask you to do that. Second of all,
and here's the thing, you're 100% right. I mean, so we have Verizon. I mean, Verizon has an automatic tracking thing for anybody. So if I was really concerned that he was actually missing or was in danger or something like that, I mean, that wouldn't have been that hard to figure out. I don't actually know how to do it, but I probably could have figured it out.
I guarantee you could have figured it out.
But that was never a concern. So
yeah, and it just goes to more what David was saying, which is they're not actually concerned with his safety. They want another reason to invade your life and make sure that you are doing what they want you to do and what they consider safe. And then if you don't do what they want, they will get you on the next charge. Just
what their opinion is of safe.
Exactly. It's their opinion, because that is definitely not what is, according to David, that's not what is in the law. So not that libertarians agree with most of what's in the law, but
well, speaking of that, Jake, here's the other aspect of it. What has been out there is that it was dangerous for this nearly 11-year-old to be walking at any point on the particular road, a road that I haven't been there. I'll be up there tomorrow, but that has 35-mile-an-hour speed limit and 25-mile-an-hour speed limit, just as you often do around schools. And for a portion of it, there's a sidewalk. For a portion of it, there's a dirt path off the road completely. It's not like even you're near the road. And even at the road, there's a sufficient shoulder that people in this town of 370 often walk, ride their bikes, take their pets for a walk. And here's what we should think about government. Hey, government, if you really think it's dangerous, too dangerous for an 11-year-old to walk along the shoulder of any portion of this road, throw up a sign that says no pedestrians allowed. Then we'll know you think it's too dangerous. So far, you haven't said that to any of these people who walk their dogs, ride their bikes, and walk, except on this instance, in this occasion, because it's too dangerous, and it's not.
Right. Brittany, what's the outlook? Like, what's going on moving forward? What are y'all working on doing?
We're just kind of in limbo right now. We're just waiting to see what the DA decides to do. So
we've gotten a lot
from
of
what I understand, I don't know how long that can take.
Yeah.
Well, I can give you an example. I have a client that's up in Hall County, Georgia, Gainesville, and he was arrested in February. And we're in November. They have yet to issue an accusation. They arrested him on a few charges unrelated to any children, and I'm defending him, but he's just in limbo. That case is pending. They haven't done anything with it. And here's the thing: government's under no requirement to act. People often think of, well, isn't there a requirement of a speedy trial? And you can, if you watch TV, you hear the TV lawyers say, yeah, we made a speedy trial demand. Yes, you can do that after they indict you and after they issue the accusation. But up until that point, they're investigating it. And there's no time barrier other than the statute of limitations that, while I haven't looked it up, it's probably 2 years. So not to alarm you, Britt, but you could be under the conditions in terms of your probation or your bail, that you're out on bail right now pending the formal criminal charges. But at the moment, you are criminally charged per the arrest warrant that, as Jake pointed out, you didn't use this language, but probably everybody's heard it. You can indict a ham sandwich, right? So with arrest warrants, you don't even need a grand jury of people in your community. You just go to a judge who looks at an affidavit signed by a law enforcement officer saying that certain things occurred, and in that officer's opinion, it violates this statute, and it gets signed.
Yep.
I actually am curious how many of these applications for an arrest warrant don't get signed. I'd really be curious. Now I'm curious.
I'm very curious of that. I'm working on a case up in Montana right now. I have no idea how the warrant got signed. It's insane. But this case is definitely getting a lot of press attention. I mean, Reason did an article on it, which is another libertarian publication.
Yeah, I think that's what started the cavalcade of media attention.
Oh, is it Reason? It was the Reason article originally?
I think that was the first interview that we did.
Gotcha. I never know what the first one is these days. There's always so many different things that pop up everywhere.
But
So,
it happens so fast. It's there must be some kind of algorithm or something that pulls information from one article and spoofs it somewhere else, because
yeah.
The recent article, I think, came out on Monday night, and by Tuesday afternoon, it was all over the place.
Yeah.
So I think the reason that it hits so hard with people is because, you know, there's a lot of parents out there.
Yep.
There's a lot of parents that, you know, leave their kids home alone if they think they can. There's a lot of kids parents that let their kids do a lot of things, go to the park, go to the store. As David's pointed out multiple times, in most areas, if you don't live within a mile of the school, you don't get a bus. So you're either getting a ride from somebody, or you're biking or walking.
Mm-hmm.
I know. Listen, I grew up in Daytona Beach, and we would be crossing 4-6 lanes of traffic, you know, major intersections. So, and there's kids that still do that today, and you know, down in more populated areas. So I think it just hits a home with a lot of parents. And that's some of the feedback that I've gotten from people that have reached out, people that I know. Was like, gosh, you know, I do that all the time. Or my kid walks to this store, or my kid bikes here. Like, I could get arrested for that. So I think it hits a chord with people that people can identify with and see themselves in a similar situation. And so it's just easy to identify with it.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, and Jake,
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, your audience is probably very familiar with the concept of the chilling impact of laws, or the enforcement of laws, or the misapplication of laws. Because if, as this story gets out, not only is it outrageous, but it does cause people to think, well, right or wrong, I could get arrested for having, notwithstanding DFACS's guidelines in Georgia that say an 8 to 12-year-old can be left alone for 2 hours. Even if I do that, a law enforcement officer could contend, because my child was climbing a tree. Oh, and that's dangerous. You allowed that. Well, Britt didn't allow her child to walk into town. He walked into town. What if you as a parent tell your child specifically, I'm going to be gone for an hour and a half or two, stay home, and your child kind of just gets bored, restless, and decides to go outside and play. And next thing you know, there's a dog walks by and he chases the dog, you're having fun, sort of loses track of where he is and realize, oh, wait, I just went a mile into town. Now you're going to arrest the parent because the child decided to walk into town. Britt didn't make him walk into town. Some of the media have written Georgia mother arrested because she allowed her child to walk into town. Well, she didn't allow him. She didn't prohibit him. She didn't prevent him, but she didn't make him either. So if you think about criminal culpability, what is it she did, going back to where we started? And then the second, as I say, parents around the state and around the country are second guessing themselves, going, wait a minute, I was going to go out for the evening and have a babysitter come over, or I thought my child could stay home while I went and got a haircut or got my hair done or went to the grocery store, because my child's 10, 11, 12. And whether you live in the city or you live in a rural part of the state or the country, it shouldn't matter. It shouldn't matter, because the risk assessment is for the parents to make, unless it is so clearly dangerous. And if you forgive me, I want to throw this out. I'm working on a Georgia bill, and I'd like Georgia to be a leader across the country, pass this first. And it would require 911, when they get a call about a child purportedly alone or at risk or in danger, that they're required to ask 3 questions. 1, does the child appear to you, the caller who became concerned enough to call in? Does the child appear to be hurt? Broken arm, bleeding. We might need to send an EMT, not just, all right. 2, does the child appear to be in distress? Crying, upset, the demeanor of the child is fear. They're sitting cross-legged on the ground, not moving, they're hiding, they're furtive. Something that suggests something's wrong here. And if the answer to 1 and 2 are both no, one more question. Is the child in a situation where they're in imminent danger of being hurt by some identifiable risk of harm? It's a young child and there's an open swimming pool. There's a child and they're wandering into a construction site. Power tools. There's a lot of things overhead. And yes, something could happen. There's a white van with some sketchy people in it with a puppy and candy, and you can see that sketchy person. And if the answer is no to all three, then dispatch passes that information on to their law enforcement people, police or sheriff. And if there's an available officer, keep in mind, they should be doing other things in town too. But if there's an available officer, have them roll up to where the child is. Maybe not even get out of the vehicle, just to roll the window down, observe the kid, maybe call out and say, hey, how's it going? Be friendly. Don't scare them. How is it going? Fine. You okay? Yeah. All right. See ya. Because keep this in mind. This child talked to the person who called 911, who asked him, are you okay? He said yes. Asked him, do you need help? He said no. Yet she called. Now, we're never going to get people to not call. You know, see something, say something has gone crazy. But we should have government control themselves. So I'd like to have that bill enacted that requires that of 911, requires that of law enforcement. And by the way, if the answer is he's not hurt, not in distress, there's nothing to see here, don't get his name, don't take him home. Because by the way, if he's in the vehicle being driven home by the deputy, and oh yes, thank you, Miss Deputy. What if right then the deputy gets T-boned by a car that ran a red light or stop sign? There's no red light in Mineral Bluff, but T-bones his car. He's now hurt. Why? Because he's in a car. Check CDC statistics. If we believe anything the CDC says, the most danger a child is in across the country is when they're in an automobile. Second concern that law enforcement should have about putting a child in their vehicle under these circumstances. What if right when they're driving away and on their way to Britt's house, they get the call, shots fired, officer down. That kid is going into a hot crime scene and now is at risk because they're not letting him out. They're going to go look after their brethren as they should. But why put kids at risk? They don't think about the unintended consequences.
Absolutely.
So I want there to be this bill, but the bill also would do this. Because sometimes you hear, well, if we didn't do something and something later happened to that child, you know, people want to hold us accountable. Then let's include in this bill, if you followed this protocol, which I hope everybody agrees makes sense, then you are insulated and immune from any civil or criminal liability, Mr. Law Enforcement, Miss Law Enforcement. On the converse, if you do take action, even though he's not hurt, not in distress, and no identifiable risk of harm, the parents can sue you. Private right of action.
I like that.
Goes both ways. We're going to protect you. You're insulated. You're immune.
Yeah.
But if you do something because you don't agree with what the parent is doing.
I have no problem with that. That sounds great. We'll help you
and
promote
it's beautiful because it doesn't leave it subject to somebody's opinion or anything like that. It's yes or no questions.
Absolutely.
So, and see if that would have been the case in this situation, then he would have just continued to walk home. He was on his way back home. So he probably would have been back home before I even got home. You know, it would have been fine. So
that's just unbelievable. Well, Brittany, I appreciate you coming on and telling us your story. We're going to try to get this out there to as many folks as we can, get more attention to it. Is there any way that people out there can help you?
I mean, just if you feel the same way and, you know, you believe that, you know, kids should have some independence because it's good for them, then, you know, if you're in Georgia, you know, look into David's law. I mean, we need more laws like this around the country so that parents can feel comfortable allowing their children the freedom that they need to grow and thrive. Because I do think that's the case sometimes right now is a lot of parents don't feel like they can because they'll get in trouble. And that's not good for kids.
No, not at all.
Mm-mm.
Hey, Jake, as we close, let me throw this out for your viewers, and I'll put the link in our chat here. It's letgrow.org. It's the organization. Well, that's another one. Well, no, that's a good one too.
Thanks
because
for dropping that there, David.
Yeah, well, that supports Parents USA. Britt, fortunately, doesn't have to pay us any legal fees, so her fees are covered by our overhead and our providing the fees, and we also do other work. But letgrow.org has statistics about risks for children and will debunk the worry that stranger danger, somebody's going to kidnap your child. They have legislation, but they like the legislation I've been discussing that I just talked about better, and I'm going to collaborate with them to help make sure we get in everything they want and we want, because it's just for parents and children. And their position is it's better for kids to have that independence because they learn self-resiliency, self-reliance. They learn that if parents would more often say, hey, pull up to a grocery store, give the child your credit card and say, hey, would you go in? I'm going to sit in the car and make a phone call. And the 10, 11, 12-year-old is empowered to go do something. They come back out feeling accomplished. Look at what I did. I did that on my own. And that's Let Grow's point of view. Our point of view is if you want to do that, great. You're the parent. It's up to you to decide. If you want to keep your kid in bubble wrap at home, though that may not be the best for your child, that's still your decision to make as a child. You can be protective, overprotective, free range. The only thing you're not allowed to do in our society is put your child in situations where there's an unreasonable risk of significant harm. That means skinning your knee or getting hurt because you let your child play football or participate in gymnastics should not subject. By the way, I worry that that's where we're going as a society, is the government's going to tell you, you can't let your children do certain things. You can't buy them a hunting knife, even though you live in the country and go deer hunting. Your child can't carry a knife because they might cut themselves. Or you can't send your kid to culinary school or let them cook in the kitchen and let them use a knife because they might hurt themselves. So we need to push back, and that's what Parents USA does, which is why Britt, to her credit, has participated and allowed us to raise money to support our efforts on her behalf and on behalf of the other endeavors that we have going on. But thanks for asking.
Absolutely. Thank y'all. Yeah, really appreciate y'all coming on. We're rooting for y'all to have a quick and just end to this. And hopefully you'll not have to deal with this for very much longer. But yeah, I really appreciate y'all coming on. This is right up the LP, Libertarian Party of Georgia's alley. We love letting people know when and how the government can be a little oppressive and step on your actual rights as a human being. So yeah, thank y'all for coming on. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Jake. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks, David.
All right. Thank you so much, Jake. I appreciate it.
All right. So yeah, and in light of this incident, LP Georgia is going to be putting forth some legislation as well, as Mr. David DeLugas, and ours is about free range parenting, giving parents a lot of their rights back, and basically keeping the government out of your family's life. That's kind of what we're all about at Libertarian Party of Georgia. So keep an eye out for that. Go sign up for, here, I'll bring it up. Go sign up for the Liberty Watch, which is our email newsletter that tells you all of the legislation that is going through Georgia Congress when they're in session. So it's so thorough. It details every bit of legislation that might or might not pass. It tells you if it did pass, if it didn't pass. And it's extremely useful for knowing what new laws are going to affect you and your community. So go check it out, lpgeorgia.com, and then go to the Liberty Watch tab and sign up for that newsletter. There's a Substack as well. So go check that out. That'll be it for today, y'all. We'll be back next week with some more Free Georgia podcast. Peace.